Hello and welcome. Today we're going to be looking at our third argument passage. As always, we're going to be going through all 11 questions on this entire passage so you get an idea of how to approach these argument passages and are ready to ace the SAT writing and language section. If you like these videos or find them informative, please be sure to like and subscribe. And with that, let's get started on our first question. A high-profile, unelected official with the political resources to influence domestic policy, the President of the United States has a wife known as the First Lady, occupies a unique position. Or said, a high-profile, unelected official with the political resources to influence domestic policy, which is this part, which means that this modifier, this part right here, that is being modified by this, has to be whatever this high-profile, unelected official is, which is the First Lady. So we have to say the wife of the President of the United States, who is, that is the person who is the high profile unelected official who we're talking about, right? That's the modifier right here. That modifier has to be applied to the first word right here. The first object right here is the wife of the President of the United States. So the modifier is applied to that. That's a misplaced modifier question, if you're wondering. And let's go to question number 2. Here it is, all the way down here. We're going to read the sentences around this because they're trying to find if you're trying to keep or delete the sentence. So we read the sentences around it to get an idea of what the passage is saying and where the sentence fits in or doesn't fit in the context of that paragraph, so we should keep it or not. All right, so we have, even though her power comes by way of the marriage rather than from the electorate or the Constitution, the First Lady or First Gentleman has a responsibility to capitalize on her situation and attempt to create significant lasting change. The President of the United States is female. Her husband's title would be First Gentleman. Throughout U.S. history, there have been a number of influential, politically engaged First Ladies from whom future First Ladies or Gentlemen can take inspiration. Well, let's see what we're thinking here, right? Like, they're trying to talk about how the First Lady does things, right? So what they've done, what they've changed, right? That's not what they're trying to say. They're trying to talk about the influential First Ladies and the work they've done, right? So we have to delete it. And it interrupts the introduction of the paragraph's main argument with a loosely related detail, or it weakens the passage's emphasis on the importance of the work done by several influential First Ladies. So you have to pick one of those to be the justification for why you delete the underlined sentence, right? So our passage's emphasis is, yes, it is on the work done by the several influential First Ladies. And then we have the introduction of the passage. Well, the introduction of the passage's main argument is that really being weakened by that loose related detail? Well, it does interrupt the passage's main argument, but the passage's main argument isn't really being said in that sentence or before that sentence, being said after that sentence. So it's not interrupting it yet because the passage's main argument hasn't been introduced yet. So our answer is then going to be D, because it weakens the passage's emphasis on the importance of the work done by the several influential First Ladies by introducing this other person, the First Gentleman, who hasn't even existed yet. We should. Hashtag feminism. But let's move on. All right. Next question. Abigail Adams, the second First Lady in American history, was the first to assume a protruding role in the political sphere. So what they're trying to say here is that it's first to assume a role that like actually means something, that matters, right? But this has to have a positive connotation. Protruding has a negative connotation. So does obtrusive and ostentatious. They both have negative connotations. Prominent is the only one that shows a meaningful, actual, tangible role in the political sphere that has a positive connotation. So that's our answer. All right. Question number 4. Let's see. Her influence is so well known that opponents claimed the president refused to make any appointments without her approbation, and aspiring politicians sought her endorsement. Well, we're talking about her as she's in the present by using the word is, but she in the past, right? She mattered what, like 1798, so over 200 years ago. She died over 200 years ago, or maybe it was less than 200 years, but it was a decent amount of time ago. That it's going to be the past tense, right? So we have to say her influence was so well known. We're not going to delete it because then it says her influence so well known. Not grammatically correct. Neither is her influence has been so well known. right? That's also a mix between the present and past tenses that really just messes up a bunch of things. All right, let's move on to the next question. Question 5. In recent years, Adams has become a popular topic for biographers because of her thoughts on gender, slavery, and politics. And we're asked for which choice most effectively concludes the paragraph. Well, we can see that the next paragraph, right? We're talking about Eleanor Roosevelt, so we're continuing talking about what first ladies have done, right? So essentially, what we want to do right now is we want to set the tone for continuing that substantial influence of the first lady, right? So that's what we're trying to do with that end of the paragraph, right? So saying in recent years, Adams has become a popular topic for biographers because of her thoughts doesn't really say anything about what her influence is or what she's done. That's incorrect. Choice B, in a period of limited female autonomy, Adams demonstrated that the First Lady could substantially influence politics in the United States. That is spot on. It tells us that she is influencing the politics. She's telling us that she's actually making a difference, and it's juxtaposing that with the point that in that time period, women had barely any freedom whatsoever and had barely any influence whatsoever. So this is able to juxtapose those two ideas and set up the increased amount of First Lady involvement in legislation. The other two choices are a major component of Adams' legacy is a collection of more than 1,100 letters written between her and her husband. Doesn't really mean anything, doesn't really say anything about what we're trying to get across in this passage. And then saying she's also the mother of the 6th U.S. president is just some extraneous information that we don't need. All right, then we have question 6. From 1933 to 1945, Eleanor Roosevelt was intimately involved in her husband's domestic policies during the tumultuous Great Depression. For example, she spearheaded the settlement of Arthurdale. Arthurdale was a resettlement. Let's see. Well, if we're repeating the words Arthurdale, right? So we just want to find the shortest answer that still works. So we can look at choice B, which is our shortest answer. Let's see if that one works. For example, she spearheaded the establishment of Arthurdale, a resettlement community that combines subsistence farming and simple industry for impoverished mine workers. That seems to work out, right? That works. It's the shortest answer, and it works. Always look for the shortest answer that works, and that's our answer. Let's continue on. Question number 7. After convincing her husband to bring the project under federal authority, Roosevelt became the unofficial project director and supported the community through regular visits and budgetary oversight. However, she became beloved by the American people who admired her commitment to helping those Americans most in need. Well, it seems like she became beloved by the American people because of all this work that she's been doing. So it's a cause and effect, right? We see, however, it's not a cause and effect, it's contrast. For instance, as an example, keeping with the tradition is another similarity, and as a result of this efforts, that is a cause and effect. Cause and effect as a result. That's our answer. Let's move on to the next question. Question number 8. At this point, the writer wants to provide an example of the legislation mentioned in the previous sentence. Which choice most effectively accomplishes this goal? Let's see. So we have 2 decades later, Claudia Lady Bird Johnson pushed further into the political sphere than had any previous First Lady. She attended legislative strategy sessions and directly interacted with Congress to garner support for her environmental legislation. Johnson established her legacy by using her political leverage to influence the passage of nearly 200 environmental laws. So we want an example. So one such legislative effort, the Beautification Act of 1965, commonly referred to as Lady Bird's Bill, improved the environment surrounding America's highways by eliminating billboards and junkyards and adding scenic landscaping. That's an example, right? That works out. Then we have after her husband signed the Law on Civil Rights Act, went on 2 solo multi-state speaking tours. That doesn't really tell us anything, especially since it's to advance his policies, and really just like a campaign tour. And then we have her beautification directive. That's not specific. And then in support of the government, See America First. That also isn't really saying anything useful in there. So let's keep going. Despite the important contributions these first ladies made to American society, her activism, well, it's plural, so it's going to be there, as in THEIR, there, the directive. And their activism often resulted in scathing critiques. Well, it resulted in scathing critiques. We're not going to put like a colon in there because it's just one clause resulted in scathing critiques. colon that sets up Adams was mockingly called Mrs. President. So not going to add in any more punctuation anywhere. So we see that choices B and C don't mess up with the colon, so that's going to be wrong off the bat. And then we have often resulted, comma, in scathing critiques. That's not what we want either. We just want resulted in scathing critiques, colon, which is the no change option. And we have here, Adams was mockingly called Mrs. President. Roosevelt was ridiculed in newspapers, and the Montana billboard read "Impeach Lady Bird." Yet, as Barbara Bush, comma, aptly noted, the First Lady is going to be criticized no matter what she does. First Ladies have a responsibility to ignore the inevitable criticism. They should use the position to create invaluable social and political change, as they have for centuries. All right, so we're looking at this part that says, yet as Barbara Bush aptly noted. So before you have the quote, we have the quote right here, you always have to have a comma before it. So it has to have a comma, so it's A or C. So we can cross out B and D. And then we have yet as Barbara Bush, comma, aptly noted, versus yet, comma, as Barbara Bush aptly noted. Well, do we really need a pause there? Because yet, comma, as Barbara Bush aptly noted, which is one clause, as Barbara Bush aptly noted. So we're not going to add another comma in, so we're just going to leave the comma out, which is answer choice C. That is it for this passage. I hope you learned something or found it informative. And I'll see you next time when we look at our fourth argument passage,